I'm a deputy superintendent, but Brenda's a retired principal, so when she says go first, I go. As Ken indicated, when we were approved for the modernization, this was our budget. And we went through the typical value management process. And if you look at the conditions, and these are the things I guess we would like the ministers to be aware of again if we ever had a chance to talk to them, is that there was absolutely no additional space. We could not increase our footprint whatsoever. Did I bump that? I'm sorry. We couldn't pay for any of the additional space personally from the Westwind coffers. And the decanting costs, the cost of having the children go somewhere else while the modernization took place, had to come out of that $16.8 million. So those were real constraints as we started looking at these things. But as we went to what's the value added, instead of just building a school and saying, everybody just stay away, we're just going to go through our process, the first people we went to was the town. We looked at the different partners that we thought we could be able to contact. So the town of Magrath was the first one that we went to. We did go to the Cardston County because they circled the school areas. We went to Family and Community Support Services, literally even Alberta Health Services, Southern Alberta Society for the Handicapped, SASH, because they had some things in our community where they have employment opportunities. We looked for partners. We considered business partners, and there are some who would come would come on board with sponsorships. But these were the people, anybody that was doing anything, especially with government, we thought, how can we have value added or synergy in the things that we were trying to do? As it unfolded, we were looking for, as I said, value added with anybody we could, even the museum in town. We looked at tourism, we looked at theater, we looked at arts education. What ended up happening was the town of Magrath convened 4 subcommittees to work with us. There was the recreation, the cultural arts, the career and technology studies, and the tourism committee. And what I'm going to ask is Brenda, because she was instrumental in bringing these committees together, I would like her to describe the process and as we go through some of the brainstorming that we got to. But Brenda, please.
Okay, just, I'm not correcting him, just, you know.
Yes,
anyway, no, I'm not. What we did is we did an all-call in the community and said, this is a chance for us to not just renovate a school, which is huge in a small community. And we said, what could we do, as John said and Ken said, to make it a better community? And so we just did an all-call and had 60 plus people from our 2,300 2,300 population. And they came together, and it was clear that we weren't getting nowhere trying to talk with 60 people. So they broke themselves into the groups, and it kind of broke out into that. So go ahead, John. Tell them what happened after that.
Well, as typical rural communities, these groups usually have chairs. They are passionate about what they want to do. The Recreation Committee was really focused on a swimming pool. For years, they tried to get an improved swimming pool or do some modernization there. The Cultural Arts Committee really wanted a theater. They wanted an opportunity for a place to perform. When we looked at career and technology studies, they were looking for adult education opportunities or continuing education in our community. Many of the town council had visited been part of the Canadian Badlands Tourism Group. They had looked at the opportunities for tourism as bringing people to the communities. And in our case, there are 4 communities fairly close together, and the Mormon Trail is part of that Badlands tourism initiative. And we also looked at economic development. And we're not going to talk as much about economic development here because of the partnership really ended up being about the town and the school. But it is a critical component going forward, that much of what we decided was going to be able to enable economic development in some form as we went forward as well. So after the committees met and we went through all these discussions, there was a consensus reached that we would focus on a career and technology studies innovation center. And there was a passion in the town for some sort of innovation, economic development, and it met with our vision for education at the same time. Part of it was also that we really did have no place to decant students in that school, and so that would have meant literally moving them to a different community. So the building itself was, I think, very important for the sense of community to be able to stay there together. So we looked initially at a pre-engineered building. Lots of discussion about that. There are lots of farmers who think they can build a pre-engineered building. It worked for their hogs, it'll work for the kids. When we finally went through this process, and we thought we could do it at a fairly good price, but with the government involvement, and I say this respectfully, they said you can't build, even a pre-engineered building will not meet the standards for a school building, so we really had to modernize that. And I think we went through 2 or 3 iterations and finally ended up with a building that was acceptable to the government, cost far more than we thought, but still part of the vision, and it worked for us. So as we go through the process, really what we ended up with, what are what are the benefits for both the school and the community? Now, Brenda, you're welcome to speak to this with me. I'd appreciate it. When you look at the Black Box Theatre, what we ended up in working with our architects were, if we could get a building that was 1,000 square meters outside of the school, because the government would not allow us to increase the footprint of the school, then that would free up space in the school. And the architect then kind of went crazy. He said, if you can take this much space outside and still have classrooms and career and technology studies, then your entire shop area has a high enough roof and a large enough space, we could put a black box theater in there. When the Performing Arts Committee in the town had looked at it, it was going to be anywhere from $4 to $7 million for them to build a theater, which is what their desire was. So again, with the $2 million that the town ended up putting in to build, well, to contribute a large portion to the building of the CTS building, this is now part of the plans. It's a 200-seat theater. It opens right into our gathering area. It is available for our fine and performing arts in the community. It can be used as a lecture theater for the library, their live performance. But that was one of the value added that both the town and the school could benefit from as we went forward. More, please, Brenda.
Okay, we kind of thought of the song Jack Johnson does, the Better Together kind of, and as our community members met together and we sat down and we came to sort of a drilling down of what it is we wanted, everything kind of stalled after that. It just kind of sat there, and no one sort of knew where to go with this idea. And so Mr. Waterhouse here started pulling together what we could do, and this was huge. This idea of a building for our town council to put together at like I said, 2,300 people, to do a $2 million building, which is sitting right next to the school on school division property that the town and partners owned. It became sort of a complex dance of working together. Our administrators had a great idea of moving forward, and our town council was sort of struggling to capture this idea and think about how we could find $2 million to do this. So I give lots of credit to John here for putting us together and getting us directed with where we actually could go. So I'll let John keep explaining what we did there.
Well, Brenda's going to make me backtrack because I think I was going on to all the positive things. Yeah, this had died about 3 or 4 times. Every time we would get together, we couldn't see our way through. I think it is fair to say that where the school division was the impetus and looking forward to the value added, as Brenda indicated, the vision either couldn't be seen, or we faced, I think, from number 7 down on Doug Griffith's list, the lack of vision, the wanting to own bricks and mortar, to a certain degree, lack of trust. Well, if you build it, are you just going to take it over? Are we somehow getting ripped off in this process? So I think by the end of June, it was almost dead. But in trying to keep it going, there were probably 20 meetings over the summer. And it wasn't until the fall of that, after we had the approval, that people started to get a vision. And the town had the vision, but the town people didn't yet have the vision. So it took a ton of leadership, a ton of explaining to build that trust and understanding. And we hit a couple of real big glitches, and one was at the library. When we get to that, we'll explain it in a little more detail. So I think it is fair, and this is where Brenda can speak from the town perspective. This wasn't a nice, simple, easy process. We had to go through the emotional experiences of helping people understand that this was actually a good thing for their community. And grants could be applied for, so it wasn't going to be a total big bill. And we guaranteed right from the front that the school division was in this as a partner 100%. We were not going to walk away. We weren't going to benefit if it wasn't a win-win. So the Performing Arts Theater, as I jump ahead, this is one of the fantastic things that we are able to do because of the partnership that would not have been able to do. So it revitalizes a community. It literally will give us the chance to show first-run movies dependent on both the furniture and equipment budget and a town sponsor who says, I think I can get the projector for you. So at that, the community, again, has many opportunities that they would have had to leave for. The Recreation Committee, although again, the highest priority for them was the swimming pool, and we couldn't go that far, but we looked at a weight room with a glass wall barrier that we could build where we would upgrade public access, new fitness equipment, a restroom access where they didn't have showers there before. A lot of high schools will have some sort of gym equipment or things, but it's really designed for classes and students. We wanted it to be able to have public access. We'd had a member of our community look, and he was seriously considering himself opening up a gym facility. And he said, if you guys can do this, this is far better. I'd rather support you than have to take a chance on myself where I'm not sure that we have enough people to be able to go forward with it. As I met with the chair of the Recreation Committee, and she realized that we may not be able to get the pool, the second biggest thing on her agenda was an indoor playground. She said, if you can do that, that would help our mums, our kids, and if you could put it in the school where they don't have to walk across the street and everything else, she said that would be fantastic. But again, as a school, we kept looking at the amount of space that we would need, the access in and out, and those are considerations that we had to discuss at some length. And Brenda, I think the Recreation Committee is pretty happy, but they still want the pool.
They do, and we need a pool. It's falling apart, the one we have right now. We had a nice mesh, wire mesh separation between the school and of course kids could actually find a way through a wire mesh, and we had all kinds of problems with security, etc. in our school. I had another brilliant thought. The rec committee came with about a $5 or $10 million project of their own when they started. It was a little expensive.
Yeah.
And the other thing is the indoor playground near the library. My goodness, what about the noise that might come from that? A little tiny noise that might interfere with the library's very quiet policy. So we had to rethink some things there as well.
So another thing that we were able to do with this, as we tried to make a community center, and that was one of the big, I think, drawing features for a small community was, could this be the location where seniors are welcome, where they can come and have coffee? And again, we go through this balancing act, I guess, along a spectrum, where some thought it was a wonderful idea. I can see my grandkids, I can be there. And others thought, my gosh, those kids are bigger than I am, I don't want to go near them. But those are the discussions we went through. But because of the partnership, again, we were able to expand an area and actually are building a commercial kitchen that will facilitate the sports that Ken talked about, the seniors as they come. We want them to be in our schools. We want them to come and read to kids. And so it's a community center, but supplied or supported by a community kitchen. This was probably our biggest, I would say, benefit and hurdle. We really looked at what the town library was able to provide in terms of technology, in terms of programming, hours that it was open. And we thought, again, if there is space in another place to take out classrooms. So the bottom line in this was we were able to build a library that was probably twice the size of both the school library. Well, combined they would be about the same. The school library side and the community library. Now we have as much space, but we have far more technology and more support. But this is always, this was also the one that was probably the biggest consternation for the community.
Our library was in a building that the community in the late 80s, early 90s had put together almost brick by brick. They'd done a lot of the building themselves, and it's in a beautiful building. It's in one of the nicest buildings that's in the town of Magrath. And so for those people who had really worked and donated to get that building, this is huge. This was a huge thing because we still have yet to decide what to do with that building. We haven't come to a consensus on that yet. And so it became very clear that there was a division in the way the generations think about libraries. And we know libraries are changing, but the people in their 80s plus did not. Plus there was lots of fear of the seniors, of being around high school kids, which really surprised us, considering their grandparents and aunts and uncles. So that was a huge hurdle.
And I would say again that this is, when you look at this, and we just say, well, it's fairly simple, these are all the great things. If you look at what Doug just talked to us about, if you went through item number 7, 8, 9, all the way to 13, the emotional investment and the emotional resistance from so many people because they didn't want to change, they didn't want this to happen, they felt their lives would be changed. There was fear. Somewhat generational because especially the mothers with families or the families said, I have an indoor playground and a library in the school, my kid's going to love this, and so am I. So all of these things, again, we're still working through some of the details of the partnership, but we're very confident that it's going to be a great partnership as we go forward. And improvement for everybody. The town will have more access to technology. They will use the theater to expand their programming. Lots of things are going digital. And I think that the infrastructure or the support, as we worked out our agreement and continue to do so, will be better for both than it was before.
We really listened to especially the library's people concerned about separate entrance for the library, separate washrooms for the library, and all of the things that they were concerned about. And we're still part of the Chinook Regional Library System, which was very important to both, basically everyone wanted to maintain that partnership.
And there were areas where, in this case with FCSS, we thought we could be able to house them as well and that it would be a real combination of supports. To this point in time, we understand that they won't be coming into the school, and that's a decision that we respect. Another one was the museum. We went to the museum because we really did think that there might have been an opportunity to include a lot of their exhibits and things right in the foyer, in the great big gathering area. They chose not to come in. They've accessed a ton of grants themselves, and they right now do have more space than we would have been able to provide them. But it was an effort to see if there, again, could have been some sort of synergy and working together for this. So some things worked out and some things didn't. The community school concept, again, I think was very attractive to everyone. For adult and continuing education, we have looked at some post-secondary programs. We are very supportive of the dual credits, but this goes beyond that. We even want to be able to offer general interest sessions, so the brand new facility with the type of equipment and updated computers, 3D printers, etc., we're saying it would be better if we can all use them than it's just limited to the students and you do your best in your library or whatever else. So the whole school community concept, adult education was very important. This is another one that didn't quite work out, or at least not to this point. We thought that we could actually be using the school during the summer in that gathering area for tourism. It may still work out, but there are some plays. The Chautauqua is coming up, and there's a couple of other things. But there's not a formal relationship right now between the town, the school, and the whole tourism concept. But again, Brenda, I'd ask you to speak to that just a bit.
One of the things that we were hoping to have was maybe have in some of the actual beautifying parts of the school, maybe some artwork or some sculpture or something that sort of set aside and talked about the history of our community, etc. And I don't think that's come to any kind of fruition. It was going to be a lot of money and a lot of extra time.
Yeah. Another area, and Doug said, pay attention to your seniors. I would say front and center in our minds, because our community, out of the 2,300, we have about 600 students, but we have a lot of people that are parents and grandparents. And so we thought, how can we make this really a center where they can continue to be involved for their own growth or their interests of hobbies or whatever, but also the community-centered gathering. The school is open all day long, and quite often into the evenings or well into the evenings. So it was looking at ways to make this a hub, this a gathering place for our community. And I would say that there were members of the school board and members of the town that to them, this was one of the most important things to be able to do. Find a place where people can gather and be comfortable at all times during the day. So this we feel will go forward, and it's a very positive move. Some seniors, as Brenda said, are still a little reticent. We've even talked to some of the kids, and they said, "Oh, my grandpa's going to be there. I'm going to have to behave." And we thought, "Great, bring him in." You know?
You have to understand also, in your schools, probably being rural schools, are still very respectful. Our school has a great atmosphere now, so it isn't like we're going to have to make big changes to make our seniors welcome. I think they'll fit right in tomorrow if we brought them in.
Yeah, we are very confident of that. This is another one. We approached SASH, and I don't know, this is still open, but they do have their own building. They have people that they employ. But again, we were just looking for any way, can we have value added? Can we make it so that you don't need that building, you could use our commercial kitchen? When we talked through things, and this was another interesting thing, that whoever we talked to in the community had to go to someone higher, and usually it wasn't in their budget, or it wasn't in their purview, or the ministries weren't talking back and forth. And so that became a barrier. It became a roadblock. They did not have the authority to explore this in the depth that we would have liked to have. And I think part of that is vision. Although even previous governments had said we want to do this in rural communities as much as we can, I don't think the effort at the ministerial level to open those things up is as strong as it needs to be. So again, for opportunities in the future, we're open to it, but we didn't build with this guarantee for SASH.
There is a partnership that's probably still ongoing with SASH.
Yeah.
SASH has a lunch program that's in a tiny little almost closet with some cooking materials in. So hopefully this will benefit that. That'll go forward.
The reality we also faced as we talked about things is that the division still needs a decanting solution, and we had come to the conclusion that that would have to be outside of the community. We would have been busing kids to, Magrath is almost in between Raymond and Cardston, and we'd have had to find other places to fill those schools up, which was a real motivator, and it was just a reality. But I think a lot of the town and people said, "Oh, we want our kids to stay in this community for their schooling, even if it's disrupted by the construction and everything else." That was very, very important to them. We also said that our CTS opportunities would have been limited. We have the existing space. There wouldn't have been a chance to expand that the way we have now. So we were ready to go ahead the best we could. And the reality, if there wasn't a partnership, is we would have done the best we could with a modernization like any community would. But we really do feel that the value added has been just immense. The CTS building covered the decanting concerns. It was actually built in time for us to move children in there before the construction started on the school for the remodernization. 11 classrooms for decanting, 48 CTS areas. The commitment from the town was $2 million. Initially, we thought that would cover the building totally. And as I said, we went into this, we've had numerous discussions with government. The town's commitment is that even though the building went up, and we are finding ways with approval from the government to ensure that we kind of shot for the stars. We were looking for a Cadillac, and we're going to get that Cadillac even if it takes us a little longer. So we've got this, our operations and maintenance, we're entering into agreements for caretaking and everything else with the community. So they're looking at cost savings from not having to maintain the library and whatever else we can do, put that into the shared responsibility. And that was a fair requirement of government. They said, if you're going to share this, how are you going to do it? One of the other things in the CTS building is a guarantee that the town actually has an office there for economic development. So we'll use the facility, but we're also trying to spur the growth, and especially in the agricultural area.
We still have counselors wondering how we're going to pay the rest of the $2 million. We've had half of it, approximately half of it paid. We still have some tough decisions to make, especially considering the municipal government's taking away our municipal MSI monies, as it's called. So we've had some real changes, as we had some government changes you might have noticed in your own world. So it's creating some concerns for us right now, and we're still working with that. We don't have 100% council support, but we have 80%, and so we're moving forward.
Yeah. This, again, Ken showed this slide earlier where it's the building and all of the different places. If you just kind of notice the green area, the next slide, pardon me, that shows you where the CTS building went. So it took a little bit of our green space, pardon me, but is adjacent to the school and works fine for everything that we need. Brendan.
It's a beautiful building. Actually, it's set up so if at the end of the day we are able to, we are hoping that we can put a small greenhouse on the end for some of the science classes, et cetera, and possibly seniors to start some maybe tomato plants or whatever. The stars lined up for this because our senior citizens building is being redone right now. Well, it's actually being a new building built. We've got a large greenhouse project that is starting in our community that's going to hire a few people, and we've got another business that's probably going to 10 times its staff right now. So we've got some big things happening.
Right. So as we went through with the architects, they showed us the possibilities for gathering areas, for seniors to be welcome. In southern Alberta, basketball is very, very big. It's part of the culture. Opening this up to the gathering area, people again saw themselves being comfortable in a facility that they're there. I mean, when we have a basketball game, I think everybody from our community and others come to it at the same time. So it really did work some things out well. Projected timelines, we'll go into this more detail for anybody who would like the information at the session tomorrow. But the town commitment was critical for us to be able to go back to the architects and say, okay, now we've got this commitment, we can go forward with it. So that process did take some time, but the building is up and running. We've decanted, we're a year into the construction. The town, in order to do this, did commit $2 million. We are still working through, but have, I think, agreement in principle on the operations and maintenance costs for the long term. There's a commitment to the details for the library. The FCSS and the museum, I said at this point in time, they're not going to be part of this. And we have a joint use agreement that is just about anybody can use the school at any time. We need to formalize some of that.
We have it kind of formalized, but
everybody's got a key, so we just need to find out who's got keys.
Actually, we're really fortunate because as the school division was creating joint use agreements in other communities, as a school principal, I kept saying, don't come talk to us, don't talk to us, don't talk to us, because we have a great system going, so don't mess it up. And that still continues with the pool and the ice arena and a whole bunch of other facilities. So yeah, we had to keep the school division away from our good deal.
But the community, I would say, as much as there were some barriers, it is such an integrated or connected community.
It is.
The school is a hub, and it's going to be even a greater hub, but teachers are connected, parents are connected, everybody just does whatever it takes to make the community a great place. I would like to invite Ken back as we leave the stage. But again, there were a number of barriers. I think the end project is going to be fantastic, but we sure had to work hard. It's not something you just go into and it falls into place. A ton of work, a ton of conversations, and we're still going through those. Yeah. And there were loud voices that we believe are the minority, but they still come to town council with some discontent.
We had 2 large community forums as well as these other meetings to go through some of the harder decisions.
The other thing that was very interesting in this is that because there's one large school, but there are 2 principals, because we have the elementary and the secondary, they were both on side for this right from the start. And I think they took off their school hat and said, I know that there's going to be issues with who's coming in, how do we protect everybody, how is everybody assured of security? But they also said, I have grandkids that are going to come to this school, and I want it to be the best. So they were fully supportive of, from an educator's perspective, accommodating, working with, finding solutions to things, rather than saying, no, this just can't happen, I'm the principal, you guys take care of your stuff elsewhere. So again, thank you very much, and we'll turn the time back to Ken.
In 30 seconds or less, thank you. In 30 seconds or less, one thing that would be interesting, I think, to many of you in the room is that you start talking about the work you do in a community, but you have to remember, and all of you understand, that you also have a school board. We have 9 trustees in 7 communities. And most trustees want to make sure something happens in their community. And so we talked about $2 million commitment on behalf of the town of Magrath. In addition, the school board is going to have to come up with an undisclosed amount of money that we're not sure how we're going to find. And, but what I want to say about our trustees is they became very global, very cooperative, and very, very much involved in the collaborative process. And I think it's been said before, and we certainly understand and believe, that the price for collaboration is time. It would have been a whole lot easier just to build a school. But we've done much more than that, and we're building a community. Thanks.